first thing that impresses you about Africa is its sheer size. I remember the first time I went there being so impressed by how big it was. It occupies about a fifth of the world's land surface. It's got 4 times the area of the United States, twice as many people, more than 1,200 different dialects and languages. Probably a quarter of all the languages on the earth are found in Africa. But it's the people, I think, that are most impressive. They're wonderful people, inherently spiritual, close to the Lord. And the story of how the gospel of Christ in its fullness was brought to Africa is, I think, one of the greatest stories in the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
In 1965, a schoolteacher named Anthony Obina was living and working in the village of Obambase in southern Nigeria. One night, Anthony had an unusual dream which ultimately would change the course of his life.
I was visited by a tall and majestic man who carried a walking stick in his right hand. He took me to one of the most beautiful buildings I had ever seen, a tall and magnificent building, and showed me all the rooms. A few years later, I had the same dream and was shown again the same building. Then came the Nigerian Civil War, and one day, while confined to the house, I picked up an old copy of the Reader's Digest from 1958. Inside was an article about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I had never even heard of the church, but there before my eyes was the same beautiful building I had visited in my dream. My whole being came alive. I rushed out immediately to tell my brothers, who were amazed and astonished to hear the story.
Writing to Salt Lake City, Anthony received a copy of the Book of Mormon and several pamphlets. But when he learned that there were no immediate plans to organize the church in Nigeria, he was deeply disappointed. Refusing to abandon hope, he continued to study and share the gospel. For more than 10 years, he wrote letters pleading for missionaries to come to Nigeria to teach and baptize his people. In 1976, he wrote again to church headquarters.
We are not discouraged, but shall continue to pursue the practice of our faith, which we have found to be true. We are very optimistic that our Lord Jesus Christ will make it possible in the future for the church to take more direct action.
On November 21st, 1978, the first missionary baptism in Black Africa was performed as Anthony Obina received the ordinance from Elder Rendell N. Mabey in the Ekio Numiri River in southern Nigeria. Brother Obina's 13 years of waiting had come to an end. On that same day, the Abo branch was organized, with Anthony Obina as president.
I remember sitting with Anthony one afternoon, a very, very hot day, in his humble house, and the first question he asked me when we sat down was, "How is the prophet?" My eyes filled with tears because I thought to myself, here is this wonderful, humble, spiritual soul who's never been out of his own country in his whole life, who's never seen the prophet and probably never will in mortality. And yet the first question he wants to know is, how is the prophet?
After serving his people for 17 years, Anthony Obina died on August 25th, 1995, at the age of 67.
In 1988, less than 10 years after the first baptisms in Nigeria, Elder Neil A. Maxwell organized the Abba Nigeria Stake,
the first stake in Black Africa. During the late 80s and early 90s, stakes continued to be organized throughout Africa. By 1997, there were 20 stakes and over 100,000 members, with an average of 6,000 being baptized each year.
I'm convinced that only the gospel of Christ will save Africa. The schemes of man, no matter how well-intentioned, will not do it. Science and technology, economic investment, all desperately needed, will not be enough. The salvation of Africa, like the salvation of the rest of the world, will come only from the sweet fruits of the gospel of Jesus Christ.